Hi, welcome back to the Counterfeit Emotions podcast. I'm Curtis Morley, and I'm an emotionologist. And I'm so glad that you're joining us on this journey. And if you find it helpful, if you find it useful, please share it with others. Click the like and subscribe because that allows us to do more shows just like this. Today's guest, I am super excited about. He's a friend. He's someone that inspires me. He's a truly great man and someone that I get to share the stage with here in a little bit. And his name is Jeff Griffin. So Jeff, thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me, Curtis.
Yeah. And for those people, I know a lot of people know who you are because of the amazing accomplishments you've done, but not just that, because of the inspiration and how you've touched their hearts. For those people that don't know who you are, let's tell them.
100%. And by the way, there's not very many people who know who I am. I like to
I
think
don't know
that I
about
am.
that.
I'm like, I am the best unknown speaker you never heard of yet. I'm like, I speak all over the world. And when I come rolling out on stage, I address the elephant in the room about how good looking I am.
That's the one. Doggone it. That beard. That's what does it.
It does. And it's not that I went from 6'1" to 4'7", and then I'm in a wheelchair, but it's how good looking I am. I do address the elephant that I am in a wheelchair, and I've learned that most of us, I may be physically paralyzed, but most of us are paralyzed from the demons of doubt, fear, and complacency. And so it's like, okay, who is Jeff Griffin? Well, I am a bundle of all sorts of experiences. And if I were to write a biography about me, I would name it My Mother's Son, because I've learned most of my life lessons from my mother. And so it's my mom who has really shaped and molded who I am. So my mother named me Jeffrey, but my friends call me Griff. And so you can call me Griff, or you can call me Jeffrey or Jeff, whatever it is. But grew up in Cache Valley and had a dream to play football. And down at BYU, I grew up in Cache Valley, God's country. And
cheese country.
And cheese country.
Yeah. Gotta love the cheese up in Cache Valley.
100%. And
the root beer milk. Let's not forget the root beer milk.
A&W root beer right there on Center Street there. Used to be. They're not there anymore, but 100%. There's root beer milk from Gosner's. I worked at Gosner's for a season, and I realized that I am not going to not get an education because I don't want to be on an assembly line. But, I didn't use my education that much with what I did, but grew up in Cache Valley, God's country. I offend the rest of the world when I say that, but they don't really realize that wherever they live and wherever they are is God's country, if they allow it to be and if they see it that way. And so, but yeah, I grew up in Cache Valley where I was able to run around with bare feet, was able to explore, play in the canal, catch snakes.
I know that lifestyle.
Neighborhood games. And so, it was a beautiful, beautiful childhood. And I didn't know how good I had it until I left. And so, but it molded me in who I am. It's helped me be adventurous. I wouldn't say helped me be adventurous. It allowed me to be adventurous. And some of us forget our childhood. And that's why I bring that up, is because, our childhood is so prolific and so profound.
Informative
and impactful.
Yeah.
It really puts us on a path. And if we don't understand the way that the mind works and the way programming happens and how, the subconscious and the conscious and all that stuff, and we can let it, hurt us or help us, depending on if you understand.
Yeah. Yeah. So you grew up in Cache Valley and worked at Gosner's and the root beer milk and the cheese. I'm just salivating thinking about the cheese. It's funny because for Christmas, this last Christmas, I got multiple cheese gifts. Cheese t-shirts, people were shipping cheeses to me from different countries. Cheese and I, we are really good friends.
I was gonna say there's got to be a backstory on that. If people are sending you different cheeses, there's got to be a story behind that one.
Yeah, our fridge, you'll find at any given point of the year, you'll find 10 to 15 different flavors of cheese in our fridge. Yeah.
Not to get sidetracked, but what is your favorite cheese?
Oh, there's so many, but by far it's gourmandise, which it only comes from Gourmandise, France. It's a soft or semi-soft that is spreadable, but it's cherry infused. It's a cherry infused cheese from France that is the most amazing. It actually it only has a note of cherry.
Mm.
The rest is it kind of tastes like a nutty flavor
Mhm.
that goes along with it, and oh, it's so delicious, so good.
Now I'm having a ratatouille experience where the flavors are popping and all that stuff is happening, and I'm like, all right, so we there's cheese tasting and there's wine tasting, and I guess apparently there's chocolate tasting as well out there. And
That's
so
true. That's true.
We'll have to do 2 out of the 3.
Yeah. Well, I'm allergic to chocolate, if you can believe it.
Okay, we'll do 1 out of the 1.
We'll
One out of the 3.
One out of the 3. Yeah, we can go get some Manchego or, I found a new apple pear Stilton
Mhm.
from England. And there's a Merlot Bellavitano that is just phenomenal. Yeah, we'll go have some good cheese.
And we got to do it in France.
Okay.
It sounds like
Okay.
in the summertime.
France, yeah. Sweden has some great ones.
Okay.
Yeah. Norway has their brown cheese,
Mm.
which is a very interesting. It's almost like caramel.
Mhm.
It's like put cheese and caramel together, and that's what you get out of Norway.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Dude, I'm ready to go. Does America have any good cheese? Because I know that everyone says that they don't have good carpet. I mean, they don't have good chocolate, or they don't have good.
America does have good cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Beehive cheeses
Hmm.
and the Gosner cheeses, yeah, they're phenomenal. They've got a lilac infused cheese. They've got the squeaky cheese. I mean, you gotta love the squeaky
Listen,
cheese.
that was in my mind. There is the squeaky cheese. I'm like, you gotta have the squeaky cheese. But it appears that your palate is a little bit more advanced than mine. I'm like, the Kraft single cheeses used to be gourmet for me. I'm like, we got Kraft American singles. I'm like, yes. And now I'm looking at it like, I'm glad we didn't have that too often.
Oh, actually, the Amish gorgonzola
Mm.
is phenomenal. That is so good. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get some cheeses going
Yeah.
for
Good.
sure.
Awesome. So Cache Valley, I loved it. Didn't realize that I had such a great upbringing. I learned my life lessons from my mother, and one life lesson that I learned from her was when I was about 10 years old. Now, my mother grew up in northern Utah, there in Cove. She was born in between the Great Depression and World War II,
Hmm.
and so she learned her life lessons on a dairy farm, knee deep in cow poop. And all sorts of other experiences. She didn't see a balloon until she was 13 years old.
Just
Like a balloon.
not a hot air balloon, just
a
a
balloon.
balloon.
Yes, because they were rationing the rubber back then. She was on a farm. Anyways, just farm life.
Wow.
She was the oldest of her 4 siblings. And so I remember going in her office at 10 years old. I was probably going in there to complain. I'm like, because I didn't want to do work. Plus my mom, she taught me how to work. And I was going in there to complain, and she was working on the computer, and the top left of her monitor was a little sticky note. And I remember reading it as a 10-year-old boy. And on the sticky note, it says, challenges are like manure. They sure do stink, but they certainly help things to grow. And I'm like, that makes sense. And that would make sense to a dairy farmer's daughter.
Yeah.
And for me, in my 10-year-old mind, I'm like, okay, I got to simplify it. I'm always trying to simplify things. And so I'm like, okay, how can I simplify that and make it make sense to me? And I'm like, oh, okay. So take your crap and turn it into a crop.
There we go.
That's my life lesson.
Take
It's
your
like
crap and turn it into a crop.
100%. Take your crap and turn it into a crop. They use that manure, they use that spread on their fields to increase the yield. And sometimes we don't allow those things in life, the vicissitudes and the other challenges and the struggles in life to help us grow. We typically allow those to cause us to be destroyed or be kicked down, buried, and all those other things like that. And so anyway, that's just kind of an insight of my childhood and how I was raised. My mother when I got hurt in my wheelchair, she came to me in the hospital. And the first thing she said, one of the first things, it wasn't the first thing, but one of the first things she said to me was, Jeff, I don't want you to use your wheelchair
Hmm.
to your advantage. Meaning, I don't want you to take advantage of your wheelchair. That's the exact phrase that she says. I don't want you to take advantage of your wheelchair, because she knew that I could easily take that situation and be a victim, and
Yeah.
always be looking for ways out of accomplishing things. And so I looked at her and I'm like, really? You don't want me to take advantage of my wheelchair? I'm like, what about the parking? What about cutting lines at Lagoon and Disneyland?
Disneyland.
Because there's a lot of people who took advantage of those wheelchairs. They didn't need it, but they got it anyways because they knew what happened there. But anyway, that's just, if I had to write a biography, the title of it would be My Mother's Son.
I love that. I love that. I can tell that she had a deep impact on you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I understand that. I definitely understand that. As a missionary for the church, for the LDS church, I was teaching a guy, and his name was Mike. And it was our first time teaching him about the gospel, and this was in Minnesota, and he said, "Well, which version of the Bible do you use? There's the King James, there's the what is it, the new translation. There's all these different versions," and he actually had several copies of different versions of the Bible, and I felt so strongly inside not to say any of them. I said, I use my mom's translation of the Bible. Because she shows me what Christ does.
Mm-hmm.
She shows me an example of Christ. And so I understand what it's like to have an amazing mom.
Yeah. 100%. And she was the one that really was a support. My dad was a support. My family members were a support. My friends were a support. But my mom came down every week to visit with me. When I found myself broken, bruised, battered, and paralyzed from the waist down.
Yeah. And bringing the story from childhood to the accident, you were set to play for BYU football.
That was my dream. Growing up in Cache Valley, I dreamt about playing football on a big stage. And Utah State Aggies is right there in Cache Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Aggies, you're not the big stage. Bronco Mendenhall, maybe he'll bring him up a notch or whatnot. Great basketball program, and they ran the ball all the time. And I was a receiver. I loved to catch the ball. And I played it in the springtime football, in the summertime, and in the wintertime. In Cache Valley was even worse. And the only places that we could play really is in the streets where it was just ice. And we'd tackle each other on the road. And, on Sundays when my mom wouldn't let me play outside, I'd go down into the basement and I'd play it in my mind. I'd lie on my back and I'd throw the ball up to the ceiling as close as I could. Sometimes I'd hit the ceiling and it'd be clink, clink, clink. And then I hear my mom's voice, knock that off, and clink, clink. And then I could hear her steps. I hurried and just ran away because I knew it was coming. But that's how much I loved it. I'm like, I dreamt about playing football for the next All-American quarterback at BYU. That's where my heart was. And I'd go to football games at Utah State and I would cheer for the Cougars, and I'd almost get in fights with adults, grown men. And I'm only 13 years old at the time.
You were a fan in every sense of the word.
I was a complete fan, and I wasn't like cheering against Utah State. It was just I was cheering for BYU, and they were kicking Utah State's, can all over the place. And so he just took that personal. He's like, why don't you go to the other side and cheer? I'm like, this is where my ticket is. And so, yeah. So when I received a letter from the legendary Hall of Fame coach, Lavelle Edwards, inviting me to come play at BYU, I'm like, he must be giving this to everybody, because I heard the word, Griff, you can't play football at BYU. You're too short. You can't play football at BYU because you're too slow. Some people are like, you can't play football at BYU because you're too white. I'm like, okay, too short, too slow, too white. I'm like, that's everybody at BYU.
It's the whole team.
I'm like, why can't I do that? But fortunately for me, I did not listen to the naysayers. I did not listen to those people who were telling me all the reasons why I couldn't, because I realized later on in life that we as individuals base other people's possibilities on our limitations. Or better said, other people base our possibilities on their limitations.
Yeah.
And so when we go to other people for advice, they're going to give us um, their perspective on it.
Yeah.
And everybody looked at me, the short, slow white guy, which I was at the time, but I learned to get faster. And I started to grow, and I got better. And I received a letter from Lavelle Edwards inviting me. So I thought he was giving it to everybody. So I took it to practice. I'm like, hey, did you guys get this letter? And they're like, no, we didn't get that. So they tried to take my head off in practice because they thought I was, bragging and rubbing it in their faces or whatnot. But yeah, I had an opportunity to go down and play at BYU. I went up to Rick's College instead and played a season there. Some of my teammates were Ben Cahoon.
The kicker.
Ben Cahoon didn't kick. Well, he kicked one field goal, but he was the receiver. He was a receiver in the 1996 Steve Sarkisian year. And then Aaron Roderick was another teammate of mine who's the offensive coordinator. I still think he is. I don't know. Maybe Michigan has taken him too. But yeah, and so I got to taste the sweetness of success, and I played 2 downs for that first year. I was on the scrub team, so the scrub players don't get much playing time, but I'm like, I got to experience what it would be like to be on the first team, to be on the field, to actually hold hands with my teammates, to inhale and to take it all, to soak it all in, and to go talk trash to the other person who's not one of my teammates, who belongs to the opposite team. And I got to experience what it would be like to be on the first team, what it would be like to be on the field. And it was just magical. It was just magical. And since then I've reflected on those experiences, and I've learned that successful leaders and leaders of success, which I think are 2 different things. Successful leaders and leaders of success. In order to be a successful leader, you not only need to learn how to get people into the building or into the stands or into the stadium. You need to learn how to get them out of the stands and out of the stadium onto the sideline with a jersey on their back. And more importantly, you need to learn how to get them into the game called life. Because I've learned that most of us are barely breathing, Curtis, and calling it a life.
Yeah.
When we should be living a life that takes our breath away.
And that's one of the reasons I specifically wanted you on the podcast. And I'd love to dig in more to what you said before, is that other people put their limitations on your possibilities. That they see what they have inside of them and project that onto you. And at the time, it sounds like even just getting accepted in BYU was that scenario of, hey, you're not good enough. And that may not be true for you, but it's true for me. So I'm going to project that onto you. How did you overcome that? Because I have a feeling that was formative in later years. How did you overcome that?
Well, some people are like, Griff, are you always this optimistic? Are you always this positive? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I wasn't always this positive or optimistic. There was moments where I was. And what's interesting is I write about it in, I don't know, mile marker 9 or whatnot in my book.
Yeah. By the way, I love the title, I'm Possible.
Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that. In our home growing up, can't was a swear word.
Okay.
Can't was one of those 4-letter words that you just don't say, because I'm possible. Like, yeah, love this. Love the title. Love the book. Love your story. So
thank you. And I'm very, very proud of that, because it's one of the greatest accomplishments of my life. One of them, not the greatest, but I got a D- in 6th grade in English.
Okay.
And so again, I'm like, all right, I'm not a writer. I'm not a reader. I'm not a reader. I only read 22 out of 1,000 pages that I was supposed to read. My high school English teacher told me I'd never be able to write a comprehensive sentence in my life.
We are so similar. We are so similar.
And she's the AP teacher. My mom made me take AP English. I'm like, why are you doing this to me? I'm like, AP is my hardest subject. We have to learn like 100 new words every day. I learned how to cheat in that class. Really good. But my freshman year in college, all that was validated the first day of class when they asked us to write a paragraph on day 1. Day 2, they called 6 of us out of 300 to the back of the auditorium. I was one of the 6 that was called. I go bounding back to the auditorium, and I'm like, what did I win? And they're like, you on a date with the remedial English teacher. And I'm like, What does that mean? And they're like, that's exactly why you need that.
Remedial.
Yeah. I'm like, it's remedial. I'm like, what does that mean? And so, I'm not supposed to be able to write a book. I wasn't able to do that. And, I learned from Dean Graziosi that 10% of authors sell 1,000 books or more.
Yeah.
So I want to announce that I'm part of the 10% club.
Right on.
We have sold more than 1,000 books, and we have 2 versions. We've got the classical version that's going to be a collector's item in a few decades, maybe after I'm dead. But yeah, I wasn't supposed to write that book, but in there I described that I wasn't always optimistic. I wasn't this positive. In fact, my wife wishes I could go back to some of those, some of that time period. Cause sometimes she's like, can you bring it down?
Lower it down, Jeff. Yeah. Lower it down, Griff.
Yeah. And I made the mistake and said, will you bring it up? People are like, how can he still be alive? Yes, that is a good question. Don't ever say that to your wife. But she's like, can you bring it down? I'm like, can you bring it up? But so again, you said the word I can't was a word that you can't that you weren't allowed to say.
Yeah.
And I've learned that is one of the words that you should eliminate from your vocabulary.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. I took my college English class either 3 or 4 times just to be able to get an A. And that was writing the same paper over and over again, just so I could get an A. And yeah, I was in that same camp. My ninth grade English teacher, she pulled me to the back of the class, and I'd written this multi-page paper, forgetting that words needed spaces. So every line was one big long word.
Yeah.
and she's like, I don't even know what to do with this. How can I even read this?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was me too. When I wrote my book, there was all evidence pointing to me not being able to do that. Right. So I understand that. Yeah. Can't is not, it's not valid.
No, it's not. And I wanted to just share that with you because, the foundation that I've created and I built and the footings that I have, put underneath the foundation has taken decades, have taken years, have taken development, have taken some experimentation, and I've succeeded at times and I have failed many more times. And so where I am today was not where I was before. And where somebody is today doesn't mean that they have to be there today. They can be where they want to be.
Yeah.
And that's why I share that with you, is because, I wasn't supposed to be an author, because I didn't read. I definitely didn't write. I wanted to use this and that and things and whatchamacallit to describe my papers. And
not big fancy words like remedial.
No, remedial. I'm like, okay. But now I've learned that I love words. I love what words mean and how they can affect us on a molecular level. I forgot the doctor's name from Japan who did a research and an experiment with water and crystals
and the ice
and saying words to the water and then freezing them and seeing how they froze differently. And he even just thinking it, it affected the molecules in the water, and we're made up of mostly water. And so words have power, words have meaning, and that word I can't is one of them. And I ask my kids not to use that word because it's poisonous. It's limiting, it's paralyzing, and it debilitates us from progressing. And as soon as you think that you can't, your mind shuts down any possibility of coming up with a solution.
Yeah.
And so every minute we doubt it's possible, every minute we say we can't, we give up 60 seconds in finding the solution. And that's all the difference is if we can flip the switch and reframe things and look at our crap and see that it can be turned into a crop, or take our mess and see that we can turn it into a message, or take the can in cancer and make it something positive is a skill set that you can develop. And it's and people kind of like hang it up on the, hang it up where there's like, no, I'm just not. I don't know if you've ever heard it is what it is.
Yeah.
Have you heard that before?
Yep.
It is what it is. And it will remain that way if you continue to do that. But if we don't realize, and if you don't realize that you base my possibilities on your limitations and I base your possibilities on my limitations, at least the majority of us do. But I don't know if you've ever been around people where they've had that flip.
Mm-hmm.
They've had that flip. They see things different, and it's a completely different energy. You go into that room, and everyone just starts saying, "Yeah, let's do this. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do this. Let's do this." And it's like, anyways, you're about ready to go save the world after you get done talking to those people, and you are one of those people.
Yeah. With hope is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. It truly is. And whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. You manifest the future that comes out of your mouth, that sits in your brain and ruminates over and over again. And if it's can't, you're right. You can't. If it's can, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
You can. And I've seen that so many times in so many people's lives. And you're right. There's this energy. There's this, like, you walk into the room, you're like, oh, that's someone that I want to be part of their sphere, want to be part of their world, because not only do they believe it, they're doing it. Yeah. And well, you remember the first time we met.
Mm-hmm.
What you don't know is that I was in the back of that auditorium while you were up on stage, and I was just crying because you inspired me to a level that it's time for me to get the Kleenex. You inspire me on a level that just filled my entire body. That when I saw you doing what you were doing, and I won't give away the secret, but when I saw that, I felt that hope. I felt the power in the hope. I felt so inspired, like, yes, life is not against me. Life is for me. And breaking out of that victim mindset of, hey, I can't, life is happening to me. No, life is happening for me,
Mm-hmm.
including the pain, including the hard times. Life is happening for me, and not just the birthday cakes and butterflies.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking all of it. And yeah, we may be buried in crap, but that's because there's somebody that wants to fertilize our growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because it's a rough road, life. There's twists, there's turns, there's ups, there's downs, and maybe you've been on top of the mountain and you've seen the landscape, and you're like, okay, I got this. That's where I want to go. That's where I want to be. I've climbed this mountain, but now I want to go over there, and I want to accomplish this. And so you descend the mountain, and you're going through the swamps and the depressions, and the the canyons and snake infested patches of your journey, and you're just like, am I going the right direction? Am I doing the right thing? Because it's, like I said, I wasn't always this positive, or I wasn't always this optimistic, and I have my moments as well, to where there are moments where I'm like, okay, this is tough. This is tough to do. This is tough to keep going. Am I going the right direction? And so it's so important to trust the process, and you've got to find the right process to trust.
Go deeper on that. You've got to find the right process to trust.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
Well, you've probably heard before. I don't know if you've ever seen these before, where these webinars or other people who promises you the world, like, hey, listen, if you buy A, B, and C, you will get X, Y, and Z. For you Canadians, Z. But
for our Canadian audience,
yes, absolutely. But if you purchase A, B, and C, you're going to get X, Y, and Z. And so you're like, okay, they're promising me this, the world over here. They're promising X, Y, and Z. And so I purchase A, B, and C. And so after you purchase A, B, and C, you end up with PDQ. I don't know if you've experienced that before.
Oh yeah.
And so you're like, okay, is the process right, or was I not following the instructions properly? The person who sold you the program will say you didn't follow the process properly. And there could be some moments where that would be accurate. And I have a little activity that I do with people that kind of illustrate this idea that perhaps maybe you didn't follow the instructions right, because there's been a lot of us who've purchased those packages of A, B, and C and been promised X, Y, and Z, and we end up with something completely different. And so then every time we have that negative experience where there's been some hurt involved, you're just like, I don't trust that. So when the right process comes around, you're like, I don't know if I trust that process. I don't know if I trust that process. But we so often focus on the promise that we abort the process. But it's the process that helps us progress. It's the process that helps us advance. It's the process that helps us get there. Now, we can't consume the whole elephant in one bite.
Yeah.
But, Curtis, who eats elephants? I don't know why Confucius even said that.
Has anyone actually ever eaten an entire elephant?
I don't even know if anyone has eaten an elephant. I have not. But
I've never had elephant myself.
Okay,
no.
So I'm going to change it. With Confucius' permission, I'm going to change it that you can't consume the whole cow in one bite.
There we go. That's much more reasonable.
But I think I probably consumed 3 or 4 cows in my lifetime.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
Because of the process. Because I just trust the process where I'm going to raise the beef. I'm going to butcher it. I'm going to cut it up into the pieces that I like, grind it into some other pieces that I like as well, and you eventually do it. And so, but what's that process? What's that process that we can, hang on to and rely on? Because even if you have the right process, there's going to be those moments of doubts. There's going to be those moments of depression. There's going to be those moments of discouragement. There's going to be those moments of whatever it is. Like it's a list a mile long. And so it's like, do I continue on or do I abort the process?
Yeah. And I'm sure when you had your accident, you questioned that quite a bit. Like, I can't imagine that you wouldn't question that. Of how much do I keep pushing? How much do I keep going? And I'm sure our listeners are really on the edge of their seat of like, okay, what happened, Griff? What happened? You've teased us all over. Yeah. We've got BYU, we've got your childhood, but what about the middle?
Yeah.
So tell us, if you will, what happened?
100%. For those who are still with us, thank you. And for those who missed out, too bad. Because this was the turning point for me. This was the hinge point for me, because I've alluded that I wasn't this optimistic or this whatever it is, positive and whatnot. And what a lot of people don't know is my freshman year when I showed up to campus and was ready to play football. Routes I typically ran with Christmas, I stumbled and fell. Passes I typically caught, I dropped. Teammates that were once encouraged me were now discouraging me because they were wanting to have the same position that I was at. And all that pressure was more than I thought I could handle. And I quit. I quit on my dream. I quit on, here I am. I'm in college. I'm playing football. And the pressure was too much for me. At least I thought it was. I was humiliated. And I'm like, and all those messages of, Griff, you're too slow, you're too white, you're too short, you're not that good, were starting to creep in. And it was too much for me. At least I thought it was. And then to make matters worse, I called up my parents and told them I was cut. So I lied to them. And thinking about that experience, still hurts to this day, but it taught me a valuable lesson, a lesson of a lifetime that I've never forgotten, that I believe has helped me with the situation that I'm going to share with you here shortly, where I found myself next to an unpainted barn in the fields of Napoleon Dynamite country there in Preston, Idaho. Next to an unpainted barn, I had just fallen 40 feet and I'd broke my back. And my dreams of playing football were shattered. Riding a motorcycle was done, was over. Being able to walk, I didn't know it at the time, but that was the last time I was going to walk again. And so, going back to my freshman year in college, I'm like, I was so embarrassed that I couldn't handle the pressure. And I was so embarrassed that I lied to my parents. And then I realized, I'm like, why don't we stop lying? When are all of us going to stop lying to ourselves, stop lying to our friends, stop lying to our coworkers, stop lying to everyone else that everything's fine, that
Hmm.
everything's okay, and reach out um, to those who can help us. And I learned that if our desires are not definite and they don't match up with our dreams, we're going to be paralyzed with those demons of doubt, fear, and complacency that creep into our minds and into our lives, and cause us to not live that life that we completely want to live and totally want to live. And I was embarrassed. I really was, but I learned a lesson of a lifetime. And so I left for 2 years on a mission, and I learned some tools and some skills and part of the process that would help me and prepared me for this moment that I found myself on my back next to an unpainted barn in the fields of Napoleon Dynamite country.
So the accident happened after your mission.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went to college for 1 year, for one semester, played for a week on the team, quit, went on a mission for 2 years. And fortunately, the coach was kind enough to say, when you're ready, you can come back.
Oh, wow.
And so when I got off my mission, I was ready to come back. And I experienced the same difficulties. I experienced the same resistance. I experienced similar situation with teammates, not encouraging me, but discouraging me. But my mindset was different. I had developed the P squared mindset that has helped me through this process. But again, I found myself in a situation that I never dreamed of. In between seasons, I was working for myself, and I get a phone call from Preston, Idaho, from this woman who wants me to paint her barn. And so 3 days later, and $3,000 richer, I'd have enough money to go back and focus on football and purchase a bullet bike. Because every time I saw a guy on a bullet bike, there was a lady on back. That's the only reason. So people are like, Griff, you really didn't want the bullet bike. You just wanted the ladies. And you're like, you're right, I did, because I wasn't that smooth. I was not a smooth criminal back then. And so I'm like, okay, so I have enough money to get my bullet bike, have enough money to go back and be on the first team instead of the scrub team. And so I was up on that scaffolding. I was up 40 feet, and the scaffolding slipped out from underneath me. I came straight down, stuck the landing perfect. My back came down and my legs came up, and my L1 vertebrae exploded inside me. And it just felt like this underground cavernous explosion had just coursed down my body. It just exploded from my spinal cord and went down my legs, down my arms, out my fingertips and toes. And the pain was so excruciating. I reached down to alleviate the pain, and my hands could feel my legs, but my legs could not feel my hands. I knew something was up. I was hoping that it was just a stinger that you get in football where you hit somebody and it goes numb, but then it comes back after a few minutes. I was waiting there for a few minutes. It wasn't coming back. I tried to roll over. I couldn't roll over. And so the fear started to creep in even more. And then my buddy recovered from his small little fall, and he comes over and he starts shaking myself. He's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I don't think you should be doing that." And I remember looking up to my buddy and voicing my fears for the first time out loud and saying, "Doug, I think I'm paralyzed. Go call the ambulance." And so he leaves me to go call the ambulance. He leaves me there with those demons of doubt, fear, and complacency, mainly fear and doubt. Like, what's going to happen now? I have no idea. The future is unknown. And now I'm like, I have no idea what my future is going to bring. Hopefully it will still come back. Hopefully the news when I get to the hospital is like, oh yeah, we'll fix this and it'll be okay. Hopefully all that stuff. And so he left me there with my thoughts, which is a bad thing to do, is to be left with your thoughts when you're in a dark place. And my dreams of playing football had fallen with me. I didn't know it at the time, but it was the last time I was going to ever put on a helmet, run a route, catch a pass from the next All-American quarterback, and live that dream that I had nurtured and developed and let go and recaptured. And it was gone.
I can only imagine the fear, the pain, the the hurt and the loss all together in that one moment. Wow. But you're here today.
Yeah. Yeah. I am here today. I'm in a better place, but I wasn't at the time. I went to the doctors. I made it to the hospital. It was a 3-hour drive from Preston, Idaho to Ogden. There was road construction from Logan to Preston, so the roads were closed. So we had to go the back roads
In the ambulance.
in the ambulance.
Oof.
Dirt roads, potholes, rocks, pebbles. They wouldn't give me any painkillers. I asked for it. I'm like, can I have some painkiller? Like, no, we want you to tell the doctor where it hurts. I wanted to reach up to him and slap him in the face and say, it hurts everywhere. Just give me something. But they didn't. And so here I am in this ambulance, and we get to the hospital, and they take a picture of my back, and then they come back with the results, and they confirmed my fears. And the doctor's like, Griff, your back is broken. You're paralyzed from the waist down. We're going to do surgery after the inflammation goes down. And afterwards, you'll never walk. You never stand. You'll never move your legs again. And you could imagine, for somebody who had wrapped his identity up in his physicality, that news was like a knockout punch from a heavyweight boxer. The room began to circle as I heard the news. And I'm like, this can't be. This can't be. And I was devastated. And I went to a dark place. I entered that, what I call the sauna of self-pity. And I was wallowing around in that syrupy, sticky sauna of self-pity that most of us experience. And it was ugly and it was dark. And I'm like, anyone who came by, I'm like, come join me. Because all I could do, Curtis, was focus on all the things that I couldn't do anymore.
And that phrase, that exact phrase is one I heard on Mount Kilimanjaro. We had hiked 40 miles round trip to make it to the top of the mountain, and on summit day we started at midnight. Well, we really got ready at midnight, started hiking at 1:00 because we had to get up to the summit and back down before it got dark the next day. But it was only 2 miles. 2 miles up, 2 miles back. And you think, oh, 2 miles, that's no big deal. But it was going to take us all of that night, all of the next day until dark. And we had to get up and back down. Hardest thing I've ever done in my life. No question. Like, I've done Ironman, I've qualified for Boston, like all these things. There's nothing that I can say was that hard. And we're hiking, and it was, Jeff, it was literally, we take our poles and we plant our pole, we take a step and we breathe. Plant a pole, take a step and breathe. And after 6 hours, we'd made it 1 mile. 1 mile after 6 hours, and it was dark and it was cold. We started our journey at -4 degrees. -4 degrees, and that was at the start. As we got higher, the temperature got colder, and I don't know if you know this, but there's a phenomenon that the coldest and darkest part of any day is right before the dawn. That is the absolute darkest and absolute coldest. And we were there, and I heard people around me saying, what was I thinking? I'm not made for this. I can't do this. How could I even think that I could make it to the top of this mountain? I can't climb this. And here we were, 1 mile from the top of the mountain, after flying all the way to another continent and hiking for days just to get to the base camp. And now we're 1 mile, and people were saying, I'm going to go back. I'm turning around. I can't do this anymore. And we said, no, you're coming with us. But as it got darker and as it got colder, right before the dawn, I started having those same thoughts, like, am I going to make it? Am I going to make it to the top? It's only 1 mile, but this is excruciating. The air is so thin. I feel like I can't even breathe, like I'm sucking through a teeny little straw. And And then we saw the sun. And at first, it was nothing more than this thin gray line. And we were so high. We were almost at the cruising altitude of a jet. And we were so high, we could actually see the slight bend of the earth. The horizon wasn't flat anymore. And it went from this gray line to a little bit of gold that seeped into the world. And all of a sudden, the sun popped up on the horizon, filling us with warmth, filling us with hope. And we had, keep in mind, we'd been hiking for over 6 hours. And what I didn't expect was up above on the trail was another party who must have started not the night we did, but the night before. And we made our way up to them, and one of the men had no shoes on. I'm like, why are you it's, it's got to be like -8, -10 degrees right now. We're talking like 30 plus degrees below freezing, and he had no shoes on. And I'm like, what are you doing? And that's when I saw the arm crutches. He had been climbing the mountain, but he didn't start 6 hours earlier. And I sat down with him. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is the hardest thing I've ever I didn't even know life could be this hard. Everything was stripped away from me, but my soul, that was all that was left. And my legs, they work. I'm like, you're putting your crutches in and pulling your legs through. Like, how are you here? And he said the same words you just said. He said, when my accident happened, all I could think about were the things that I couldn't do. How I couldn't run, how I couldn't walk, how I couldn't hold my baby while standing up, how I couldn't reach over in the crib and lift that baby up. And he's sitting there and he said, there's so many things I can't do. I can't do this. I can't play basketball anymore. I can't do this. And he had his arms around me while he was telling me this. And he took his arm off my shoulder and he pointed up to the summit. And he said, there's so many things I can't do, but this I can do. And yeah, it's going to take me 2 or 3 times longer than it's taking you, but I can still do it. And I realized he's one of those people. He's one of those people that didn't let despair overtake him. He said, no, hope is my companion as I climb this mountain. Courage. And sure, there's fear and sure, there's doubt, but guess what? My companions are hope. My companions are courage. But he used those exact same words that you used. I could only think about the things I couldn't do. And he said, one day I got sick of it. I said, I'm done. I'm so sick of this. I said, I'm done. I'm not going to ask that question anymore. Instead, I'm going to ask, what can I do?
I love it. I love it. I have so many questions. I'm like, this is for another podcast, another conversation. But I'm going to ask you, and we can revisit it later. But talking about cheese, there's a parable of a guy who had some cheese and looked like a rock, and he's like, I'm going to squish water out of this rock, and he squishes it, and water comes out, and the guy's like, oh my gosh, this guy's so strong. But when we're dealt with these difficult situations, the pressure increases and we learn a lot about ourselves. And if we had more time, I would love to know what came out of Curtis Morley when that pressure was increased. Because we learn a lot about who we are in those moments. I learned a lot about who I was at that moment and who I wasn't. And I was feeling sorry for myself, and I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. I can't do this. I can't do that. People would come to the hospital and mourn with me, but I found out that I'm like trying to encourage them. I ended up trying to encourage them instead of them encouraging me because they were so distraught about what happened. And And I was just having this pity party one day. They stopped feeding me in the hospital. I'm not in bed. They kept feeding me, but if I wanted to eat, I had to go to the cafeteria.
Mm.
And so it took me 30 minutes just to get my body brace on and get up, and then 8 of 2 nurses to get into my wheelchair. And everything I did that used to just take me seconds would take me minutes, nearly hours. And I was just so discouraged. Everyone had to wait on me, hand and foot, and I wasn't used to that. Nurses would have to come every 2 hours and roll me over so I wouldn't get pressure sores. Someone would have to help me use the bathroom, something that you don't want to experience at the age of 22.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those moments. I'm rolling down the sterile halls of the hospital, which I felt like my life was at this moment. It's just sterile, gray, dark, disgusting. And the tears appeared. And they crested my eyelids and started rolling down my cheeks. And I'm just having the worst pity party I've ever experienced. I got to the cafeteria and I got my food. And you know how you're feeling bad, you want to be left alone. It's the worst thing to do, but that's what I want to do. Is I just want to get away from the pain and get away from people. I just don't want to talk to people and whatnot. And so I went to the corner of the cafeteria, put my tray down, and I just want to be left alone. And I'm flavoring my food with my tears, and I'm just feeling sorry for myself. And I didn't even realize who I just passed. But I sat down in the corner of the cafeteria, put my food there, and I was just crying. And all of a sudden this tray flops in front of me. And I look up and I'm about to tell this guy to go take a hike and say some words that I wouldn't use on this podcast. But before I could say anything, he asked me a question that set me free from my prison. And the irony of this whole thing, Curtis, is the guy sitting across from me was a prisoner from the point of the mountain who was doing some time because he was a criminal. He was a lowlife. He was considered somebody unworthy to even be there. And he had been lifting weights in the prison, had an aneurysm in his brain and paralyzed on the right side of his body. And so this question he asked me was in his slurred speech because he couldn't talk very well. But he looked me right in my eyes. He's like, "Right, hi, dude." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Why are you crying, dude?" And I realized what he was asking me was, "Why are you crying, dude?"
Mm.
It was like a 2x4 had just come around and just smacked me on the side of my face. And it just snapped me out of my pity party. It like kicked me out of that sauna instantly. And things that I wasn't able to see, I started to see. And down the table was a man who was paralyzed from the neck down. He had a halo screwed to his skull. He couldn't even feed himself. He couldn't even move his chair without help. And here I am. I'm able to move my chair. I'm able to feed myself. I'm able to hug and feel those hugs. The guy next to him was paralyzed from the neck down as well, but he had some movement. So they taped a fork to his thumb and finger, and he's trying to, pick up his food and bring it to his mouth, and the morsels fall off his fork, and he's struggling just to eat. I have no problem shoveling that food in my mouth. So that prisoner that asked me a question set me free from my prison. And from that moment forth, I stopped looking at the things that I couldn't do and started looking at the things that I could do, just like that individual on top of Mount Kilimanjaro. And that's one reason why I have Mount Everest on the front cover of my book. That mountain was deemed impossible to climb for decades, for centuries. And now anybody who has the right team, enough money, and dedication can get to the top. There's been blind people who have made it to the top. There's been 80-year-old men and women who have made it to the top. My buddy who was on my teammates, Jeff Glassbrenner, amputee, first male American amputee to make it to the top. He's done the 7 summits.
Wow.
It's amazing. The 4-minute mile was thought to be deemed impossible. But Roger Bannister, he broke that. He broke that ceiling. And that prisoner broke the ceiling for me and reminded me, "Why are you crying, dude?" And ever since then, I'm like, you know what? You're right. there's no reason for me to cry. I'm going to start focusing on things that I can do instead of what I can't do. And I'm like, I want to do it. I'm willing to do it. And whatever I can do, I'm going to do it the best I can. So every day I do all that I can. And that's made all the difference.
And most people will never have to go through the trials you've gone through. They won't. But every time I see the Griff, every time I see him, my life is better. Every time I see you, I see a smile and I see hope. And people struggle with, oh, I've got a bad job, or I've got I had an argument with someone at home, or I'm failing school, or whatever. And comparatively, I know it's not good to compare, but comparatively, those things are so small.
Mm-hmm.
But people get consumed with that.
Mm-hmm.
People get consumed with, well, oh shoot, I didn't pass my class, or I didn't pass my driver's test, for teenagers, or whatever it is, or the GED, or I don't care what it is. But what would you say to them? What would you say to those that wanted to be at the end of the table by themselves, alone in their own pity party, to be able to help them break out of that cycle, to break out of the victim mentality of life is happening to me instead of for me?
Yeah, I love that, because if I could go back to me, my 14-year-old me, I'm like, would I even listen to myself? If I went to him and said, hey, listen, I want to hit you across the forehead. I want to hit you across the head and just tell you, hey, listen, believe in yourself. You're so much more than you think. Would I have believed it back then from me? But I've learned some life lessons that we all can do. We can all flip the switch and reframe our situation. We can all flip the switch and start looking at the positive instead of the negative. And people are like, well, that's just not me. I'm like, every single person here who's listening to us right now probably has had a conversation on the phone. And I call it the phone voice. But before the phone rings, we're talking to somebody, a loved one of ours, or whatever, and we're like, you know what? We go off on each other and we start arguing. We start talking about all the bad things about that other person, or all the bad things that are happening in our lives. And we're having this pity party with each other. And all of a sudden the phone rings, and all of a sudden you pick it up. Hello. Yep. Uh-huh.
You go from yelling and screaming and hello.
Right. You know what I'm talking about? The phone voice.
Yeah.
And then here's the irony, and here's what I just don't understand. But as soon as you have that conversation, you click, and you just go at it again. And so you flip the switch. We're capable of flipping the switch whenever we want to. We're just unaware that we're able to. And those teenagers, bless their souls, man, they're going through a time period in their life where it's just ugly. Chemicals are changing, body is changing. They go through middle school, which I think was created by the devil himself.
He's the founder of
middle
school.
He is the founder of middle school. I'm like, you know what? I don't believe in homeschooling, but I think that I would homeschool my kids if I could do it again during that time period. But there's some galvanizing things. There's some forging things that happen as we go through that fire. But one thing that I would share with those people who are struggling is don't consume the whole cow in one bite. Take it step by step by step. Know where you want to go. And here's the sad truth. Most people don't know what they want.
Yeah.
So that's why life is so miserable, is because they don't even know what they want. They don't have a dream. They don't have a destination.
No purpose.
They don't have a direction. They don't have a purpose. They don't have a mountain to climb. And so that first step is understand, know what you want. You got to have that dream. You got to know what that vision is. You got to have that song that sings inside your soul that just draws you towards where you want to go. And we can orchestrate and conduct that song inside our soul. But most of us have stopped dreaming.
Yeah.
And most of us don't know how to dream. Well, we've got a technique that helps people do that. In as little as 10 minutes, we could help people, I call it dream weaving, to find out what their dream is on a visceral subconscious level. To where it's like, how you kind of ask questions and you're probing, and all of a sudden you hit the right question. You're like, this lights him up. This lights him up. And we have that experience where it's just like, boom. So first of all, find out what your dream is. Second of all, start developing a desire that matches up with that dream. Because once your desires match up with that dream, because we all have conflicting desires. You've experienced it before, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's human and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
normal and it's okay. But to understand the process and to understand who we are and how we can change and how we can improve and how we can progress is important for us. And a lot of people don't teach the people how to develop a dream. Other people don't say, hey, listen, you can develop a desire even if it isn't your nature. Because I look at you, Curtis, and I'm like, man, this guy's amazing. This guy's he can do all sorts of things. He's gifted. He's got that ability to hit you right there in the soul and right there in the heart. And you're like, man, he's just gifted. Curtis is capable of obtaining his dreams. I'm not. And we get into that. We get into that comparing game, which we shouldn't. We can be inspired by each other, but we shouldn't compare each other. And then, of course, there's those actionable items that we can take that can help us do that. And one of those things that we can do is once you understand what your dream is, take that step, take the next step, and then take the next step and trust in the process, because inch by inch is a cinch, just like you did on Kilimanjaro. But yard by yard is hard. So do every mile with a smile.
I love that. And that's been your life. You've been an Olympian. You've been a medal winner. You've been like, your life is so inspiring to me.
Yeah. And Curtis, can I interject here really quickly here?
Yeah.
Those things are great. Yes, I have been to the Olympics. Yes, I have been a 4-time MVP, all-star, recipient in the wheelchair NBA. I have 2 Guinness Book of World Records. That is amazing. But here's what's most amazing. Can I share this?
Yeah.
When I got hurt, the doctor says, you'll never walk, you'll never stand, you never move legs again. 0% chance. I'm like, oh. Then they said, you'll never have kids. It's the first function to go. It's the last to come back. For a 22-year-old, that was the worst thing. People are like, what's the worst thing? Being in a wheelchair, you can't walk? No. Some of the experts told me I'd never get married. Not because of my wheelchair, but just because of who I am.
Had nothing to do with the accident.
Had nothing to do with the accident. It just had everything to do with me. And I get that. And, but my greatest accomplishment is convincing my wife to say yes. And now we've been married for 28 years. We have 4 beautiful biological kids. And now I can get out of my chair and I can climb those mountains all the way to the top.
And you have.
I have. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for inspiring me.
Yes.
Thank you for being a friend and someone that I can look up to. I can call, we can go to lunch, and I can share that excitement of hope in life. Because you used a word earlier in the interview. You said life was gray as you were pushing your way down the hall. And now all I see is color. All I see in your life is so much color. And that's the difference. That's what hope brings. That's what we can truly tap into. And it's almost like a different world. Mm-hmm. It's almost like living in a different place. When you can tap into hope, life goes from gray to full technicolor. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the most powerful universal forces. I don't think there's many that are stronger than hope. So thank you for sharing that hope with me.
100%. Thank you for having me. Listen, it's easy to look good on the shoulders of giants, and you're one of those giants, Curtis. I sincerely say that. I love you. I love what you're doing. I love who you are as a person.
Thank you. And one thing that I ask every one of my guests is that, with counterfeit emotions, there's one emotion that can't be counterfeited, and that's peace. And I want to know where Griff finds peace.
I love that question. And I rarely get to share the real source for me. And the title of my book, I'm Possible, is intentional. Because I always hear the question, like, how do you turn the impossible into the possible without changing your environment? Because we always make excuses. Well, I didn't go to the right school. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. I'm the wrong color. I've got some disabilities. I've got some disadvantages. I've got some limitations. Whatever it is, the list is a mile long. And so how do we change the impossible? Our circumstances, the cards we've been dealt with, the situation that we're currently in, And how can we change the impossible and turn it into the possible? Because what we do today on a regular basis was once deemed impossible in the past. Madame Curie was told there's no more elements to be found, and she found two and a Nobel Prize. The Wright brothers were told you can't control life, you can't control flight, but we can get across the United States in a matter of time. And so what is it that we know is possible that everyone is telling us is impossible? And where does that hope come from? Where does that source come from that lights us up, that lifts us up, that propels us forward? And for me, the simple solution was just include an apostrophe. Include an apostrophe in impossible, and it changes it to I'm possible. And who's the great I am? It's Jesus Christ.
It's Christ.
The Prince of Peace. I talked to you about being in that ambulance 3-hour drive. It was the longest 3-hour drive of my life. And I was hurting. The pain was excruciating. I felt like they had folded me in half the wrong side. Every bump, every pebble, every pothole hurt. And it vibrated up into my back. And the pain was so excruciating, they wouldn't give me painkillers. And so I'm like, what can I do to get rid of this? I remember, my buddy cutting his finger and passing out. I'm like, okay, I got to pass out. I'm like,
You tried.
I tried. And
You tried.
The EMTs are like, what's going on? I was like, nothing. It's not working. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I remember boxing my buddy and I hit him in the head and he passed out. I'm like, so I asked one of the EMTs, I'm like, hey, will one of you guys hit me as hard as you can right here? They're like, no, sorry, doctor's orders. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I'm like, what can I do to get rid of this pain? So I'm like, I got to get my mind off of it. So I started telling them jokes. And halfway through my joke, one of the EMTs looked at the other EMTs like, do you want to hit him or do you want me to?
They were that good, huh?
They were that good. It was that bad. But just to kind of give you an idea of how painful it was, and I'm just excruciating pain, and I'm in that bus, I'm in that ambulance, and I was like that annoying little kid on a trip. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? How much further? How much further? Are we there yet? It was the longest 3-hour ride of my life. It was probably the longest 3-hour ride of their lives. But I remember halfway in that journey, a memory came to me about a man and his friends traveling the countryside at night and stopping in a garden. And his friends fell asleep while he went in there, and he prayed and he prayed. And he took upon the sins of the world upon himself. And not only did he take upon the sins of the world, but he also took upon the infirmities and the heartaches and the disappointments and the setbacks and all these things, the divorces and the drugs and the depression and everything that we go through. He took all that on him. And in that moment, I could see that he knew what I was going through, that he experienced the pain that I was going through at that very moment. He made it possible for me to pick up the pieces, to dust myself off, and to move forward. So what gives me peace is the Prince of Peace, the great I am. He is first and foremost in my life. And I've learned that if I keep him first and foremost in my life, everything else that's not important will fall out of place, and everything that is important will fall into place. He has done more with my life than I could ever do on my own. And that's the greatest team member I have ever linked arms with, is with the great I am. And that's one reason why I named the book I'm Possible. It's not me, it's him. But through me, I can shine his light to the world, to where we can turn the gray and turn it into 4K.
Turn the gray to 4K. I feel that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Griff.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if people want to buy the book, Amazon?
They can go to Amazon and get the collector's edition. Amazon won't sell that. So if you go to griffinmotivation.com.
Okay, griffinmotivation.com.
Griffinmotivation.com, Griffin, like the mythical beast, the griffin that's half lion, half eagle. I try to remind my wife that I'm a griffin, and she's like, you're neither a beast nor mythical. That's why we've been married 28 years. She keeps me in my place. But if they go, whoever's here, if they go to griffinmotivation.com, you can go get my book. If you get 2 of them, shipping is free. And just to throw a little love on those who have made it this far, if you put in the coupon code LOVE, LOVE, we'll knock off 50% on the as many books that you want to purchase. And so anyway, this has been a very short hour for me, Curtis.
Yeah, it feels like
Thank
we
you.
need a couple more.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your heart. Thank you for being the man that you are, because I know not only have you inspired me, you've inspired so many. And if you if you haven't seen Jeff speak, if you haven't seen one of his talks, or you haven't hired him yet, do it. It is one of the most inspirational things that I've ever seen, and I'm so grateful that you guys are joining us on this journey of to find that one emotion that has no counterfeit, and that's peace. Thanks, and we'll see you next week. I'm gonna do one more thing real quick. Tommy, splice this into the beginning. Today on the podcast, we are going to talk about hope. We are going to dive into what hope truly means, especially when you are in deep despair, especially when the world seems like there is nothing going right and there's no future. We're going to talk about how to get out of that and to brighten your life. Go from the gray to 4K, as Griff says, and change the entire formula. Can't wait for this episode. So here we go.